Greetings, intuitives and tarot and oracle enthusiasts. Welcome to Ensite Circle for an awakening intuition. Today, for this week's card reading challenge and spread, I thought we could have a refreshing change from the usual and start getting into constellation spreads. And I'm basing this off of that we are coming up to the new moon, and the new moon will be in Aries. So, the featured tarot deck for today is one of my favorites, the Light Seers Tarot by Chris Ann. She has an excellent website. I highly recommend it. She did not sponsor or ask for any of this, but I'm going to give some free promo just because I am delighted with this particular tarot deck. So, with our spread for today, yeah, see the backs of those are all nice. We're going to have these neat seals as place markers for each of our cards in the spread. Now, we're going to do some more cards on the spread than just those three. And in case you were wondering, this is just a minute version of the sign for Aries. And I like doing these things. If you'd like to see any kind of particular artwork featured, I am willing to take requests, and we'll see what we can kind of come up with. I enjoy a good art challenge. So, again, we want to get centered, grounded. We want to get into a space in which we are comfortable in ourselves. Some people even do a little charging to their cards as they shuffle. Clearly, I am not a poker player, nor am I ever going to see any professional work in a casino. But that's not what this is all about. This is about that I enjoy the art, and I want to share it with people, and I want to encourage people to take up the art and not think that it is merely for the psychics, because we are all psychic. And if there's one thing in Insight that's going to be reiterated over and over and over, it's that you have the gift, you have the power, and you can take the information from your intuition and apply it at any time in your life. So, breathing in, breathing out. Now that we are centered and grounded, and please do take the time to do so, I highly recommend it. It makes so much better a spread. A reading, that is. Spread goes with where your mind follows it. So like with all spreads, it's an elaborate question. So we want to start out, well, what are we asking here? Well, with this place marker, we're going to be asking about the main heart of this spread is going to be asking a crucial question about our will. And I'll elaborate more in a moment. But for right now, just know that that's your will. That's got like a lot of sun energy there. And here's something that has a lot of that Mars energy. In fact, this particular star seal has a little bit of that kind of Scorpio version of Mars. For you astrologers out there, that's kind of the inspiration here. With this, it's about our own innate abilities, especially somewhere in the occultic concept. So it's about our gifts, our talents, often hidden. It's actually connected to two different stars. Sheraton, which is the second brightest star in the constellation Aries, and Mira, which is actually a binary star in the constellation Cetus. All you need to know is that I've made these according to me as a amateur astronomer, astrologer, and I really get a kick out of that. If you'd like to know more, please contact me. I love to talk astrology, astronomy. But that's going to be about our talents. So our will and our talents. And then we get down to this little bitty guy. I don't know if you can see that really well. Yeah, the lighting's not the perfect, but there we go. Don't worry about what the letters mean. I've specifically picked those for things that mean stuff to me. But it's a sigil, seal, if you will. And this one is for the smallest one now. I don't remember the name of the one star at the end, and it's actually a fairly small, it's still pretty bright, but it's kind of dull. The seal is referring to two other constellation Lucada bright stars up in Andromeda, actually. So, with that one, the basic idea is about offering and sacrifice. So Aries is one of those dynamic sort of signs that loves to be about directing your will, carving out what you want. But you're limited by your scope of talent and development of that talent. So it can be very much that your will is plenty strong, but your talent is limiting. And over here, this is about what you have to, your kind of equivalent exchange, what you have to give out and pull back to get things going. And kind of if we took a moment for astrology again, our will, our offerings and sacrifices, and our talents are centered at 3 different points on the constellation. That is a perfect segue into talking about decades or decanates or decanes. There's different ways to refer to it, but it's just the 10 degrees segments of the 30 degrees whole of the sign of Aries. Again, that's a lot of astrology. I'm bringing that forward because I do want to go through each sign this year, and I would encourage people to really kind of dig into that. Well, how about we go forward a little bit, and we'll get back to the, I will call them decanates, the 10 parts, or the 10 degree parts of Aries, because that will also come into play in the Code of Tarot. Yeah, we're going all out for this, so I hope you will just bear with me and have some patience. So we've been doing a lot of introspection on our spreads recently. And so even as I'm conversing, I mean, what is it that we're hoping to find in Aries? What is it that I'm wanting to explore deep down in my heart? What is the biggest thing that I'm wanting to explore in Aries? Oh, this little impromptu read tells me this is a beautiful Two of Swords. Lots of times they show somebody meditating or somebody balancing two swords, but this particular deck is a bit contemporary and showing two, I think they're crows. They could be really small ravens, but they are going about this lady who is blindfolded, and she's having a hard time making out where is what and what is where. So in this, it's telling me that I'm kind of going blind. Ooh, now that's a pretty harsh one. My deck is calling me out and saying, you don't have a clue what you're doing for this spread, are you, Loki? Well, I'm going to keep this on the feed because I think it would be really interesting. But it is also saying that I need to pay attention to my intuition. I need to follow it closely and balance what I'm thinking about with what I'm receiving as far as information goes. The two ravens, Hugin and Munin, in Norse myth, literally thought and memory. Sometimes that we have these birds flutter around in our minds and confuse us. So if I don't let myself get confused with my own thought and don't get preoccupied in my own memories, we can go forward with this without a hitch. So that was kind of a neat way of calling myself out, but with Aries we can explore all sorts of things. So I encourage you as you're starting the spread, because it's what you make it. Ask yourself what you are most wanting out of this. Because Aries is about your will. It is about ambition. It is about things coming to fruition. It can be about conflict. So look out. This may be picking a bone with people that are butting heads with you in life. So, in my case, I'm going to ask the crucial question about my will. I want to know, out of all the things, what is it that my will is most backing? What is most of my energy and time backing? That's going to be that right there. Because I may think it's all going towards one thing or the other. Maybe that I think I've got a pretty good bead on what it is. It's so beautiful. It's a gem. Wow. But it could be that I have a crap ton of this stuff in the background. Looks kind of ugly. And it's wicked sharp. So it might hurt me. So that's something to keep in mind, is that sometimes that we think we're going red hot in one endeavor and we're putting everything into one pot, and really a lot of our energy is pouring over into another, and that we are enabling it. So it's saying where most of my energy and effort is going, despite whatever my will. Then I want to know, what are my talents best suited for? What do I have out on the playing field, so to speak, that is going to be most useful to put my skills towards? What will be the best place for my skills and abilities? Then this little guy, well, I've got to be honest. Where's my bank account in this? My spiritual, my life bank account. Because I want to know what I can offer up in exchange. But I also want to know, and this is an example, and I'm extending the spread. The spread is just those 3 cards, and you've got to figure up a question for your will. And then concerning things that you're on, you want to have something that's concerning your skills and abilities. You also want to have something that addresses the kind of offerings or sacrifices, the sort of equivalent exchange, the price that you have to pay to get things forward. Now, I just extended with where's my spiritual or my life bank account, and then I'm adding in, I want to know what's also going to be sacrificed. What am I going to have to sacrifice? So I know first where my bank account is, and then there's a price that's going to be paid, and I'm not necessarily going to have any control over it. I'm just going to have to be able to prepare. Now, up here where I was wanting to know where would be best to put my efforts in my skills and abilities, what would be the best fit, I also want to know what it is that limits me in that area. And if it's upside down, and here's another twist. We'll get to this. I'm showing different card methods and different questions you can ask, including kind of complicated ones, not as what you're going to do. And I'll lay this out. This is my attempt at showing different things. And we'll go back over this really carefully, but I'm making that if this is right side up, this tells me what my limitations are in that area that best fits my skills, my talents. If it is upside down, then it means that there's not a limitation in that area, so to speak. That may be an area for my growth, but instead, whatever the card is saying upside down is more just what I need to work at. Now, with my will, saying, okay, well, what if I really put my energy towards? I want to find some way, I want to know what I can do to get myself on track for what is of the greatest utility to me, what is the greatest good. So notice that we have just doubled up. We have just put another card per card that we have set out. Now, let's just break this down to be simple. We have a card concerning our will. We have a card concerning our gifts and abilities. We have a card concerning whatever it is that we are finishing what we're needing to bring forward as a price, or something that will be sacrificed. That's another consideration. Now, we're going to flip over just the ones that are concerning, ooh, that's kind of juicy. Alright. And I'm not going to turn anything upright because we're going to discuss something briefly that I've noticed in some of the circles. People have kind of struggled with the concept. In tarot, there's different methods and different schools of thought. Some really don't care. If it's upside down, right side up, it really doesn't matter. Some that it changes the complete meaning of the card. Now, sometimes this is also about the deck. So this particular deck treats upside down less as the negative version or whatnot, and more as a learning experience. It doesn't turn the meaning completely upside down. It says this is a place that you struggle rather than what's coming to you. But there's another school of thought in which it flip-flops, depending on what your intuition is saying. So in this case, I'm going to implement my beautiful lapis lazuli, sorry. This wonderful stone of deep blue with gold flecks and white. Anyway, the stone of truth in my case. This is going to be something in which this pendulum, I'm going to ask the question, are we honoring reversals? Oh, no, we're not. And what does that mean? What do we mean by that? Well, that's my phrasing to the question, because questions are, how you phrase the questions are very important in tarot and in any kind of divination. Honoring reversals is about whether we're actually reading the reversed cards as actually reversed. In this case, no. So we're back to what I've talked about before in a previous video about symmetry. Notice there's 2 cards down and 1 card up. We'll get back to what this means, but notice that our will is the part that's up and everything else is down. So I wanted to know, where is my energy actually going? Well, it's to deal with heartache, trauma, pain. I love this particular deck just because of how visceral this particular card is. This is the 3 of Swords that speaks most to me. The look on her face, which is more striking when you're actually holding the deck. She is in utter anguish. She's crying out. This is terrible. This is a horrible time. The skies are gray. The tree is blowing around. There's storm birds flying about. And this patched together, dilapidated heart. But that's asking us to actually do the work. That when we are trying to find closure, that we work through our emotions. So there is that addressing all that pain and suffering and finding healing. Now, we go to the next one. I was like, what is it that would be the best thing to put my talents towards? Well, we'll put it back down again. But here's a wonderful, very oddly different 9 of Cups. It's kind of hard to see the top of the ocean water, and she's underwater, floating in there. She's turning her back away from a treasure chest. And there's all these singing bowls just kind of floating in the waves, and out from her heart, and you can't see it really well. But again, the experience of a deck is really a first-hand experience. There's, out from her heart is just shining, radiating, as though she is the sun. And it's beautiful. Because there, it's saying what's best for me, what would be best for me, would be to turn my talents towards living my inner joy, finding not only contentment, but finding what makes me happy, that it's already out there, it's already in me, the joy of life is already flowing from me, just like the cups. She's not having to get something exterior for it, it's inside. And it's a state that can be, she's also looking up. So she's not drowning with the weight of the chest. She's coming up out of whatever. So it's kind of a perfect one to pair up with 3 of Swords, because drugged down, torn apart, having to piece back together, and then finding that joy and lifting up. So that's something to take into consideration. Now, this is the one that's going to kind of be challenging. Where is my bank account, my spiritual bank account. Page of Cups. Definitely a daydream believer. This is about dreaming, folks. The page there, they're sitting there by the ocean side, and it's really hard to see, but there's up here, there's a little flying piglet, and there's a cup, and there's clearly somebody who is actually flying by the seat of their pants. And a little hand heart drawn in the background. Again, very contemporary, but getting over the idea of someone with an extremely good imagination and able to see the impossible. So instead of seeing that as the usual sacrifice and offering, what I'm seeing is that I'm going to have to put aside some of those daydreams and be a little more practical, but at the same time be a little more imaginary at the same time, which really kind of gets into what I had here. So we can remember exactly what we were at, and sometimes it's good to write things down, but recap, we went through will, we went through skills and abilities, the talents, and this includes hidden ones, so look out for that. If it looks like, well, I'm not good at piano, but it says to you something about piano, for instance, that would be a good example of such a situation that it's referring to that. And then here is about sacrifice or offerings. So another way of looking at that is the dreams are offerings. It might be that I have lots of ideas and lots of dreams and hopes, and that some of them are just being brought forward to give me hope, so that I can look up. And sometimes, yeah, just thinking about that wording, offerings and sacrifices, sounds like it's going to an external deity, but just like Namaste, as a concept, literally is expressing that the divine is within us all. Now, we're going to go to the next set of cards. Now, before we get into it, again, the symmetry is repeated. So, to a certain extent. No, we have it, yes. We have this is upside down, this is upside down, and this is right side up. Because remember, I'm putting the card down like so. And this is the kind of stuff that tells you that your intuition and somebody is trying to talk to you, whether it's your own intuition, your own soul and spirit, or whether it's the divine, or whether it's somebody that you trust on the other side. However you want to believe about that is up to you, but let's get started on these augmentations, to these extra parts to the questions that we asked. So I wanted to know, okay, what am I going to have to pay up front? What is the thing I'm going to have to, whether I like it or not, I'm going to have to address that firsthand. This is a very curious one, because a Six of Wands is usually about fame and acknowledgement, or, this one is definitely about acknowledgement. The lady is there performing in front of a crowd. This is actually a really good card usually, and as a sacrifice or an offering, I think, again, with something that's a joy, this is almost like coming out about something, talking out, speaking out loud, bringing yourself forward. So kind of like me doing these videos is I'm having to do that. That's not a choice that's left. That is an offering or a sacrifice of my anonymity. Yeah, I know. The one with the hands is, and only the hands is anonymous, right? So here was well, what are my limitations? Now remember, I had put a caveat, and this you can do at any time with your cards, especially if you're asking things, yes or no questions, or you're saying if then. So, like, let's ask over here for a second. Beautiful deck. Let's ask, does this have any negative things? Does this have anything, any price to it that I might not want to pay? Yes or no? Nope. So see, this is upside down, and I just asked a yes or no question. I can do that. You can too. Some people, it's not as consistent, so that's why I highly recommend using pendulums. And a pendulum doesn't have to be anything elaborate. A piece of string and a washer is a good layman's pendulum. And we'll get into dowsing some other time, but for now we're going to get over here to my limitations. I said, if yes, then what are my limitations? And the crow speaks. Just taking time, because sometimes little things in your everyday life can sometimes signal some kind of epiphany, some kind of message in just happenstances in everyday life. So here I have a book on ravens because I really like the particular birds. They're very fascinating. But I put that here because they are very much oracle birds. They're very intelligent and they can mimic human speech. So a lot of ancient peoples thought that they were astute enough that they would also try to give bits of wisdom to mankind. Perhaps they still do. So limitations. Oop, it's upside down, which tells me it's not about my limitations, it's about what I've got to learn. In this case, it's an 8 of Wands, which is full of color in this case. Just wands of every color. Well, 8 of Wands is about doing things quickly. Snap, snap, get to it. So it's learning to react to situations that are painful by looking for the upside and developing that coming out of the muck more quickly for one reason or another. That's how I'm taking that. But notice that I used both functions, possible functions, both the meaning of the card and that whether it was reversed or upright. You can do that however you please and how often you please. So this one was upright, mimicking the uprightness of the other card that it was paired with. So bringing that symmetry again, in which we'll kind of bring that home in a moment. With this, there is a King of Pentacles. A gray, wizened dude, very comfortable in his den next to his husky, or if you want to fantasize it as a wolf hybrid. But just definitely getting home that this guy has a lot to offer, a lot of wisdom, a lot of years of hard-earned experience, and that he's not getting bent out of shape for nothing. He's just laid back, and you're there talking with him. So with this, it's telling me, because I wanted to ask about with my will, or where my will was the energy that was being put there, whether there was some way that I could put that towards the greater good, put my what I needed to do to put my will towards the greater good. And it's saying here, you have experience, you have you know people with experience, you have this resource that is both your experiences and your observations and little tidbits of wisdom, and just maybe it's stuff you're just keeping around. I mean, just stuff that's of no use to you, but it might be something worth to somebody else. And just that richness of life being lived up until this point, whatever it is. So if you hadn't noticed in a sort of emotionally woke context or intelligent context, there's a lot to do with that joie de vivre, that the happiness of life, the enjoyment of life, because there's dealing with sorrow and loss and having to turn that around and find the happiness within. I mean, it gets kind of hard when you have a broken vessel, the heart. But, it's like here, it's like put your talents towards fixing that. Get yourself buoyant again. Get yourself dreaming, because that's needed. Your dreams are needed to get things done. And here it's saying, the cost is, you have to quit hiding. What you need to work on is get a little quicker, be a little more responding. Do it in such a way that it becomes a reflex. What do we mean by that? I mean, come on. No one just turns from having a loved one die or have a relationship end or such, and then just turn right around and be like, just singing in the rain and stuff like that. But it's not exactly how I'm taking that. It's about responding gracefully to a situation to where I am taking, instead of wallowing and just drowning at the bottom of my sorrows, kind of learn how to look, address, and, or as one particular author referred to the acronym RAIN. So I'm going to try to remember this off the top of my head, but it was an excellent one. Recognize, accept, investigate, and I'm going to say negotiate, but that's probably not what it means. So what that means is that you recognize that you're being triggered, or you're in a state of pain and suffering, and what you accept that it's happening. You sit there in non-judgmental awareness, and you investigate the feelings. You allow the feelings to kind of just be there for a second, so that you can see what the real root of it is. Be compassionate with yourself and be like, instead of jumping to conclusions, which we often do, what is this really about? And then negotiating is working with yourself to find a practical means to work things out. So that if you get angry at somebody for something that isn't reasonable to stay angry at them, you're getting through to finding out what upsets you so much about it, and in the end trying to say, okay, regardless of whether they're going to fess up to it or not, or whether they're going to change their behavior or not, how can I move forward the most positive way? That's what I understand RAIN to be. If anybody would like more on that, Tara Brach is an excellent author, and I would be glad to give you information about that author later. But we were just kind of going down and reviewing one last time what happened here. So as we were reviewing in each of these segments, we also were coming up to where I was asking another part to the question of the will, and just being like, well, what can I use the will for the greatest good? And it's like, just use your experience to help others, because that's going to help you too. In recognizing what you experienced here and what you've been putting your will to helping yourself, your experience, whether it's directly or indirectly related, is going to help other people. And that you finding your joy is going to really help. It's going to be where your skills are going to be of the greatest use, your talents. and you're going to have to dream a little. You're going to have to put that, this is more like effort. It's like you're going to have to let go of some of the pessimism and start to dream, but it also means at the same time, you're just going to have to come out with it. You're just going to have to be up front. You're going to have to shine a little. And it's going to be a little scary, but then you got to work through, and that I think is pretty self-evident here. So, as we're cleaning up, wrapping things up, thank you for watching so far. We're just going to review that this spread, your first card is going to be about the will. Now you're going to have to frame that question yourself. That's very important. Now this can be about a will of a group too, or it can be beyond that. But this Aries spread is very important because it's about the will, the talent, and the offerings or sacrifice. And this threefold part is meant to be expounded on. Consider it like a fractal. If you don't know what a fractal is, it's a shape in which you can then add on the same shape, and it will create a bigger form of the same shape with a little more detail. And it just grows and grows and grows and grows and grows. There's some excellent stuff on fractals online. Just get curious. Go out and find stuff. So, skills and abilities, offering and sacrifice, and the will. This is all about what Aries is about. Please do comment. If you have any questions, either in the next Zoom meeting or in the comments or on the forums, is all open for you to bring forward and learn more about the beautiful, intuitive art of card reading. Thank you for your time. Namaste.